12 confirmed kills. 1 pilot, 1 aircraft, 1 day. When Flight Lieutenant James Johnnie Johnson landed at RAF Kenley on June 30, 1943, his Spitfire Mark IX's wings were scorched black from gun smoke. His ground crew counted the ammunition. Empty. All 8 Browning machine guns had fired every single round. The Focke-Wulf 190 was the deadliest fighter Germany ever built. Luftwaffe pilots called it Der Würger, the butcher bird. RAF intelligence said it was physically impossible to beat in a dogfight. Johnnie killed 12 of them before tea time. This is how he did it. June 30th, 1943, 11:47 hours. 18,000 feet above Abbeville, France, Squadron Leader James Edgar Johnson, call sign Grey Cap Leader, is flying top cover for a bomber raid when German radar picks up the formation. Within minutes, Jagdgeschwader 2, the Luftwaffe's elite Schlaggitter fighter wing, scrambles 37 Focke-Wulf 190s. The FW-190 outperforms Johnson's Spitfire in almost every measurable category. It's faster in a dive. It rolls twice as quickly. Its 4 20mm cannons and 2 machine guns deliver more firepower. Since its combat debut in September 1941, it's achieved a kill ratio that terrifies RAF Fighter Command. Johnson has 8.303 Browning machine guns, 2,800 rounds total. Against 37 FW-190s, the math is brutal. But Johnson has something German pilots don't know about yet: 300 combat hours in Spitfires, an engineering degree from Loughborough College, and a tactical philosophy that treats dogfighting like a physics problem. What happens in the next 6 hours will force Luftwaffe High Command to rewrite their combat manuals. The engagement was classified most secret for 18 months, not because of technology, but because RAF intelligence didn't want Germany to know how thoroughly one pilot had dismantled their tactical doctrine. To understand how Johnson turned an inferior aircraft into a weapon that could kill 12 FW-190s in one day, we need to go back to a farm in Leicestershire. Born March 9, 1915, Barrow-upon-Soar, Leicestershire. Population 3,200. James Edgar Johnson grows up in the English Midlands during the Depression. His father is a police officer, working-class family, grammar school education, no family military tradition. Nothing about his childhood suggests he'll become the highest-scoring Western Allied fighter ace to survive the war. What he does have? An obsessive interest in how things work. At Loughborough College, Johnson studies civil engineering. He approaches problems methodically, calculates stress loads, analyzes failure points. This mindset, treating combat as an engineering problem, will save his life dozens of times. In 1939, Johnson tries to join the RAF. The medical board rejects him. Reason? Chronic shoulder pain from a rugby injury. He appeals. Rejected again. He appeals a third time, arguing that the shoulder won't affect his ability to fly. The board finally clears him in August 1940, just as the Battle of Britain reaches its peak. By the time Johnson finishes training in early 1941, the battle is over. He's missed it. He arrives at his first operational squadron, 616 Squadron, with 0 combat experience, while surrounded by veterans who've been fighting since 1940. March 1941 to June 1943. The learning curve. Johnson's early combat record is unremarkable. His first kill doesn't come until June 26, 1941, 9 months after joining an operational squadron. He's methodical, cautious, technical. Other pilots rack up kills through aggression. Johnson studies deflection angles, energy states, ammunition conservation. He keeps a notebook. After every mission, he diagrams the engagement, notes what worked, what didn't, calculates optimal firing ranges for different approach angles. His squadron mates think he's overthinking it. By June 1943, Johnson has flown 287 combat sorties. He's accumulated 3 confirmed kills and 4 damaged. Not impressive by ace standards, but he's alive. Many aggressive pilots from his training class are dead. Then the FW-190 appears. The FW-190 problem. September 1941, RAF pilots over France start reporting a new German fighter, radial engine, stubby nose, faster than a Spitfire Mark V in level flight, faster in a dive, rolls like nothing they've ever seen. Intelligence designates it the FW-190. Within weeks, RAF loss rates spike. Spitfire squadrons that dominated the BF-109 are suddenly being shredded. Pilots who survive encounters report the same thing. You can't outmaneuver it, can't outrun it, can't outgun it. The RAF solution? The Spitfire Mark IX, with a Rolls-Royce Merlin 61 engine, more horsepower, better high-altitude performance. It still can't roll with the FW-190, but it's closer. Johnson receives his Mark IX in July 1942. He treats it like a research project, tests its performance envelope, calculates turn radius at different speeds, times the roll rate, measures ammunition expenditure per second of firing. He discovers something. The Spitfire Mark IX has one advantage nobody's quantified yet. At speeds above 350 miles per hour, the FW-190's aileron control stiffens dramatically. The Spitfire's doesn't. In high-speed maneuvering, the exact conditions of a dogfight, the Spitfire can change direction faster than the heavier German fighter, not by rolling, by using speed and vertical maneuvering. Johnson develops a tactical system. Use the Spitfire's superior sustained turn rate to force the FW-190 into a defensive spiral, then convert to a high-speed yo-yo maneuver when the German pilot tries to disengage. Never try to roll with them, never dive away. Force them into the one regime where the Spitfire has the edge. By June 30th, 1943, Johnson is commanding 421 Flight within 610 Squadron. He's trained his pilots in his system. They're starting to win engagements against FW-190s consistently. Then comes June 30th. 11:47 hours, 18,000 feet. 30 miles southeast of Abbeville, Johnson is leading 6 Spitfire Mark IXs as top cover for a dozen B-17 bombers hitting a rail yard near Amiens. The formation crosses the French coast. Clear skies. Visibility unlimited. Temperature at altitude -15 degrees Celsius. His radio crackles. Grey Cap leader, Swindon control. Multiple bandits scrambling from Abbeville. Vector 270, Angels 18. Johnson banks west, scans the horizon. Nothing yet. Then he sees them. 37 FW-190s climbing in formation. Jagdgeschwader 26. Some of the Luftwaffe's most experienced pilots. They're positioning for a classic bounce. Dive out of the sun onto the bombers, make one firing pass, then extend away before the Spitfire escort can react. Johnson has 6 fighters. They have 37. If this goes conventionally, his job is to break up their attack, let the bombers escape, then disengage. Trade altitude for survival. Instead, Johnson does something that violates every tactical doctrine in the RAF playbook. He turns into them. Grey Cap section, this is leader. Maintain spacing, we're going through them. His wingman, Pilot Officer Hugh Cocky Dundas, later recalls, I thought he'd lost his mind. You don't charge head-on into 37 FW-190s, but Johnnie's voice was calm, matter-of-fact, like he was ordering breakfast. 11:49 hours. Closure rate, 680 miles per hour. The FW-190 formation sees 6 Spitfires coming head-on. This isn't standard RAF tactics. It disrupts their attack sequence. The lead German element breaks left. The second element breaks right. The formation fractures. Johnson picks his target, an FW-190 in the center element banking hard right. Range, 800 yards. Closure rate still extreme. He waits. 700 yards. His gun sight pipper tracks ahead of the German's nose. He's calculating deflection angle mentally. The FW-190 is pulling 4 Gs into the turn. Johnson leads by 3 aircraft lengths. 600 yards. He fires. 2-second burst. All 8 Brownings, 160 rounds downrange. The FW-190's canopy shatters. The fighter rolls inverted and enters a flat spin. Johnson doesn't watch it fall. He's already acquiring the next target. This is where Johnson's engineering mindset becomes weaponized. He's not dogfighting, he's solving a series of sequential problems. Problem 1. 37 enemy aircraft means you can't maneuver defensively. Solution: destroy the formation's cohesion immediately. Problem 2. Limited ammunition means you can't afford deflection, spray and pray. Solution: only fire when geometry guarantees hits. Problem 3. FW-190s have superior roll rate and firepower. Solution: never give them a stable firing solution. Stay in constant three-dimensional motion. Johnson pulls vertical. The FW-190 formation is now scattered across 10 miles of sky, some diving toward the bombers, some engaging his wingmen, some trying to reform. He rolls inverted at the top of his climb, pulls through and dives onto an FW-190, pursuing one of his pilots. 11:51 hours. 14,000 feet. The FW-190 pilot sees Johnson coming, does exactly what Johnson expects, and rolls hard right to break the attack. The FW-190's superior roll right means it can rotate 180 degrees in just over 1 second. But Johnson doesn't follow the roll. Instead, he pulls up and over in a high-speed barrel roll, using the Spitfire's better sustained turn rate to stay inside the German's turn circle. When he rolls wings level, he's 400 yards directly behind the FW-190. The German pilot tries to extend, push the throttle forward, and outrun him. At sea level, the FW-190 is faster, but at 14,000 feet, the Spitfire Mark IX's Merlin 61 engine produces more power. Johnson closes to 250 yards. The FW-190 is centered in his gun sight. No deflection, pure 6 o'clock shot. 3-second burst. 240 rounds. Tracers walk up the FW-190's fuselage. Coolant spray. White smoke. The radial engine seizes. The fighter noses over and dives vertically. Johnson doesn't have time to confirm the kill. His peripheral vision catches tracers flashing past his canopy. 11:53 hours. 12,000 feet. An FW-190 is on Johnson's tail. Range: 600 yards. Closing. Johnson's airspeed: 340 miles per hour. Altitude: 12,000 feet. He's in the heart of the Spitfire's performance envelope. The FW-190 behind him is faster in level flight, but Johnson doesn't intend to stay level. He pulls back on the stick, 4 Gs. The Spitfire arcs upward. The FW-190 follows, but it's heavier. It bleeds energy faster in a vertical climb. At 16,000 feet, Johnson's airspeed drops to 180 miles per hour. He's approaching stall speed. The FW-190 is 800 yards behind him now, also slow. Johnson kicks left rudder, rolls inverted, pulls the nose down, split S. He's diving now, trading altitude for speed. The FW-190 pilot follows, but he makes a critical mistake. He tries to cut inside Johnson's turn by rolling first. This is exactly what Johnson wants. At high speed, the FW-190's ailerons stiffen. The roll is sluggish. Johnson, now diving at 400 miles per hour, pulls out of the split S and immediately yanks the stick into a 6G level turn. The Spitfire's wings flex. Johnson's vision grays at the edges, but the fighter turns tight, tighter than the heavier FW-190 can match. He's reversing the geometry. 3 seconds ago, the FW-190 was behind him. Now Johnson is arcing around, bleeding speed, but gaining angle. The German pilot realizes too late. He tries to roll out. Extend, escape. Johnson fires from 90 degrees deflection, high-angle snapshot. He's not aiming at where the FW-190 is. He's aiming at where it will be in 0.4 seconds. 1 second burst, 80 rounds. 20 rounds hit. The FW-190's right wing root explodes. Fuel fire. The fighter snap rolls left and sheds its wing. Kill 3. Johnson's mouth is dry. His oxygen mask stinks of rubber and sweat. He's been in continuous combat for 6 minutes. Fuel: 3/4 remaining. Ammunition: approximately 2,300 rounds left. He climbs back to altitude. 11:57 hours.
18,000 feet. The bomber formation is gone, either hit their target and headed home or scattered. Johnson's section is scattered too. He can see 2 Spitfires to the north, engaged with FW-190s. Radio chatter is chaotic. Someone's calling for help. Another pilot is confirming a kill. Johnson spots a pair of FW-190s below him, 15,000 feet, heading south. They're disengaging. Standard Luftwaffe doctrine: make one pass, kill or miss, and then extend away at high speed.
Johnson rolls inverted and pulls into a split S-dive. The FW-190s don't see him. They're flying line abreast, 200 yards apart. Johnson is coming down at 450 miles per hour, directly behind the trailing fighter. At 500 yards, the lead FW-190 spots him, brakes hard left. The trailing fighter brakes right, directly into Johnson's line of fire. Johnson doesn't adjust his aim. The German pilot just maneuvered into his bullet stream. 2-second burst, 160 rounds. The FW-190's cockpit disintegrates. The canopy peels away. The fighter continues flying for 3 seconds, then snap rolls and enters a spin. Kill 4. The lead FW-190 is now circling back. The German pilot is aggressive, probably an experienced ace. He's trying to reverse the engagement, get onto Johnson's tail. This is the mistake most FW-190 pilots make. They trust their aircraft's superior roll rate. They think they can outmaneuver a Spitfire in close combat. Johnson lets him try. The FW-190 rolls right. Johnson doesn't follow. Instead, he pulls into a vertical climb, converting speed into altitude. The FW-190 pilot rolls back left, trying to track Johnson's climb. But Johnson is already rolling inverted at the top of his Zune climb, pulling his nose back down. The FW-190 is below him, wings level, trying to reacquire. Johnson drops his nose, diving attack, 400 yards, no deflection. The German pilot sees him, tries to roll away, too slow. 3-second burst, 240 rounds, strikes along the entire fuselage. The FW-190's BMW 801 radial engine catches fire. Black smoke pours from the cowling. The fighter rolls onto its back and dives vertically into the ground. Kill 5. Johnson levels off at 16,000 feet. His hands are shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline and sustained G-forces. He's been pulling 4 to 6 Gs repeatedly for 10 minutes. His neck aches. His legs are cramping. He checks his fuel, half remaining. Ammunition, roughly 1,760 rounds. The sky is empty. The bomber raid is over. His section has scattered. Standard procedure is to return to base. Instead, Johnson turns south toward Abbeville. 12:04 hours. 8,000 feet, 5 miles north of Abbeville Airfield. This is where Johnson's tactical thinking becomes almost reckless. Abbeville is Jagdgeschwader 26's home base. The FW-190s Johnson just fought are landing there now, low on fuel, low on ammunition, vulnerable. If he can catch them in the landing pattern, they're defenseless. RAF doctrine explicitly forbids single aircraft attacks on defended airfields. German flak is accurate and dense. The risk-to-reward ratio is unacceptable. Johnson ignores doctrine. He descends to 2,000 feet and approaches the airfield from the north, using a tree line for concealment. Abbeville's main runway runs east-west. He can see FW-190s in the landing pattern, 3 on final approach, 2 more on downwind leg. He waits until the first FW-190 touches down, wheels on runway, speed bleeding off, then pushes his throttle to maximum power and dives. 12:06 hours, 1,000 feet, 380 miles per hour. Johnson comes in fast and low, below the flak tracking radar's minimum altitude. The FW-190 on the runway is rolling out, slowing. The pilot doesn't know Johnson is behind him. Johnson fires from 400 yards. 4-second burst, 320 rounds. The FW-190 explodes. Fuel fire. The wreckage skids off the runway and cartwheels into a perimeter fence. Kill 6. Every flak gun on the airfield opens fire. Johnson pulls hard right, dropping to 50 feet above the ground. Tracers arc overhead. Yellow, orange, white. 20mm rounds, 37mm shells. A curtain of fire. He jinks left, right. Uncoordinated rudder kicks. No predictable pattern. The flak gunners are leading him, trying to predict his path. He makes his path unpredictable. A 37mm round passes 10 feet above his canopy, close enough to feel the concussion. Johnson sees another FW-190 on final approach, 800 feet above the runway. Gear down, flaps extended. Landing configuration, helpless. He pulls up steeply, bleeding speed. The Spitfire climbs at a 45-degree angle. The FW-190 pilot sees him and tries to firewall the throttle, go around, abort the landing. Too late. Johnson fires from below and behind. 3-second burst, 320 rounds. The FW-190's left gear collapses. The fighter slews left, strikes the runway on its wing, and cartwheels. Pieces scatter across the concrete. Kill 7. Johnson has perhaps 3 seconds before every flak gun on the airfield calculates his position. He pushes the nose down, diving back to ground level, and accelerates eastward.
A line of 20mm tracers stitches across a wheat field 50 yards to his right. Dirt and smoke erupt. Another burst ahead of him. The gunners are bracketing him, trying to trap him in a crossfire. Johnson pulls up to 500 feet, rolls inverted, pulls through, and dives back to 50 feet on a different heading. The flak tracking can't keep up with his three-dimensional maneuvering. He clears the airfield perimeter and climbs to 5,000 feet. His fuel gauge shows 1/3 remaining. Ammunition? Approximately 960 rounds left, enough for maybe 4 more engagements. The smart move is to return to England. He's already exceeded every reasonable definition of a successful sortie. 7 confirmed kills, one of the highest single-mission tallies of the war so far. But Johnson isn't done. 11 hours. 12,000 feet, 10 miles east of Abbeville. Johnson spots a lone FW-190 below him, heading north, probably a straggler from the earlier engagement. Low on fuel, trying to reach Abbeville. Johnson positions himself in the FW-190's blind spot, high 6 o'clock, directly in line with the sun. The German pilot won't see him until it's too late. He dives, 400 miles per hour. The FW-190 is cruising at 280 miles per hour, unaware. At 600 yards, the German pilot spots Johnson and brakes hard right. Fast, violent roll. Classic FW-190 defensive maneuver. Johnson doesn't follow the roll. He pulls vertical, then rolls inverted and pulls back down. A high yo-yo. When he rolls wings level, he's still behind the FW-190, but now he has an altitude advantage. The German pilot reverses, rolls left. Johnson pulls up again, another yo-yo. He's staying above and behind, forcing the FW-190 to maneuver in 3 dimensions while maintaining his own energy state. The German pilot is good. He's not panicking. He's trying to extend, build separation, then reverse back into Johnson. But the Spitfire Mark IX matches his speed at this altitude. After 30 seconds of vertical maneuvering, the German pilot makes a mistake. He pulls into a flat turn instead of continuing to work vertically. This gives Johnson a firing solution. He rolls wings level 400 yards behind the FW-190. Pure pursuit, no deflection. 3-second burst, 240 rounds. The FW-190's tail section disintegrates. Elevator gone. The fighter pitches down violently and enters an unrecoverable dive. Kill 8. Johnson climbs back to 15,000 feet. He's been in combat for 24 minutes. His body is exhausted. His neck hurts from constant head movement, checking 6 o'clock, scanning for threats. His right hand aches from gripping the stick through high G maneuvers. Fuel? A quarter remaining. If he doesn't head home soon, he'll run out over the channel. Ammunition, 720 rounds remaining. Then his radio crackles. Gray Cap Leader, this is Blue J5. I'm hit. Smoke in cockpit. Can't see. Need vector home. Blue J5 is Pilot Officer Robert Ewell, one of Johnson's wingmen. His voice is steady, but Johnson can hear the fear underneath. Johnson, Blue J5, this is Great Cap Leader. Transmit for homing. He listens to the tone, triangulates Ewell's position. South, 15 miles. He turns south.
18 hours, 8,000 feet, 12 miles southeast of Abbeville. Johnson finds Ewell at 6,000 feet, heading north. White smoke trails from his Spitfire's engine cowling. Coolant leak. The Merlin engine is overheating. Ewell has maybe 5 minutes before it seizes. Johnson pulls alongside. Ewell's canopy is partially obscured by oil. The pilot is hunched forward, squinting through a small, clear section at the bottom of the windscreen. Johnson keys his radio. Blue J5, stay on this heading. I'll guide you to the coast. Then he sees them. 4 FW-190s. 10,000 feet, diving toward Ewell. They've spotted the damaged Spitfire. Easy kill. Ewell can't maneuver, can't defend himself. The FW-190s are coming down at 450 miles per hour. Johnson has 720 rounds remaining. 4 enemy fighters. That's 180 rounds per kill. If he shoots perfectly, if he doesn't miss, if he's lucky, he doesn't hesitate. Johnson climbs toward the diving FW-190s. Head on, again. The lead FW-190 pilot sees him and brakes left. The second brakes right. The third and fourth continue diving toward Ewell. Johnson picks the third fighter. Range 800 yards. Closure rate 680 miles per hour. Deflection angle minimal. He fires. 2-second burst. 160 rounds. The FW-190 pulls up sharply, breaking off its attack on Ewell. Johnson doesn't see where his rounds hit, but the German pilot's reaction tells him he scored strikes. The second 4th FW-190 is now on Ewell's tail, 600 yards and closing. Johnson pulls hard right, then reverses into a 6G left turn. His vision tunnels, gray edges. He blinks rapidly, forcing blood back into his head. The Spitfire groans, airframe stress. He's cutting across the FW-190's attack angle, intercepting. He's not behind the German fighter. He's off to the side, 90 degrees deflection, 500 yards. This is a nearly impossible shot. The FW-190 is moving at 400 miles per hour. Johnson's bullet time of flight is 0.5 seconds. He has to aim where the FW-190 will be half a second from now. He leads by 4 aircraft lengths and fires. 3-second burst, 240 rounds. Half his rounds miss, but 30 hit. The FW-190's canopy shatters. Hydraulic fluid sprays. The fighter rolls left and dives away, trailing smoke. Kill 9. Probable. Johnson doesn't have time to confirm. The first 2 FW-190s have reversed course and are diving back into the fight. Johnson is now alone, low on fuel, low on ammunition, facing 2 fresh enemy fighters. Ewell's voice on the radio. Gray Cap leader, I'm clear, heading north. Johnson, go, I'll catch up.
The 2 FW-190s split. Classic pincer attack. One comes from the right, one from the left. They're trying to force Johnson into the middle, where he'll have to defend against both simultaneously. Johnson does something unexpected. He dives, full power, nose down, trading altitude for speed. The Spitfire accelerates through 400 miles per hour, 420, 440. The 2 FW-190s follow, but they're starting from a higher altitude. They have to dive to catch him, which means they're behind him now, not beside him. At 2,000 feet, Johnson pulls out of the dive, 7 Gs. His vision blacks out completely for 2 seconds. When it clears, he's level at 1,500 feet, doing 460 miles per hour. The 2 FW-190s are still above him, diving. They overshot. Johnson pulls vertical, zooming back up. The FW-190s flash past him below, traveling too fast to turn. He rolls inverted at the top of his zoom and pulls through. Now he's diving again, but this time he's behind both FW-190s. They're separated by 300 yards. Both pulling out of their dives, both climbing. Johnson picks the trailing fighter, range 500 yards, no deflection. 2-second burst, 160 rounds. His guns are running low. He can feel the difference in the trigger pressure, less recoil. Strikes along the FW-190's left wing root. The wing folds. The fuselage snap rolls and sheds the wing entirely. The fuselage tumbles. Kill 10. Johnson has 160 rounds remaining, maybe one more engagement. The final FW-190 pilot sees his wingman go down and decides to disengage. He pushes his throttle to maximum power and dives northwest.
extending away at maximum speed. Johnson doesn't pursue. His fuel is too low. Ewell is ahead, still leaking coolant, barely flying. He climbs to 8,000 feet and follows Ewell north. 12:24 hours, 5 miles south of the Channel coast. Ewell's engine seizes. The propeller stops rotating. His Spitfire is now a glider. Johnson says, "Blue J5, you're 3 miles from the coast. Can you make it?" Ewell says, "Negative. I'm going in the water." Johnson watches Ewell's Spitfire glide down, smooth, controlled. At 500 feet, Ewell jettisons his canopy. At 100 feet, he pulls the nose up, bleeds off speed, and pancakes into the channel. The Spitfire floats. Ewell climbs onto the wing, inflates his Mae West life jacket, waves. Johnson circles overhead, transmitting Ewell's position to air-sea rescue. A Walrus amphibious aircraft is scrambled from Dover. ETA, 12 minutes. Johnson stays overhead until the Walrus arrives, lands on the water, and picks up Ewell. Then he turns north and heads home.
12:37 hours. Approaching the English coast. Johnson's fuel gauge reads 1/8. His engine is running rough, probably damaged by debris from one of his kills. His airframe has stress cracks. He can see a small hole in his left wing, a single bullet hole. He doesn't remember when he took that hit. He crosses the coast at Dover and heads northwest toward RAF Kenly. Then his radio crackles again. "All Greycap aircraft, this is Swindon Control. Bandits crossing the coast at Dungeness. Vector 180, Angels 12. German fighters, heading inland, probably FW-190s from another Geswander, hitting targets of opportunity. Lone British bombers returning from France. Johnson has 160 rounds remaining. Fuel for maybe 15 more minutes. He's been flying combat for 50 minutes straight. He should ignore the call. Let another squadron handle it. He's done enough for one day. But there's a bomber out there, probably damaged, probably alone. Johnson turns south. 12:41 hours, 12,000 feet, 10 miles north of Dungeness. He finds them. 2 FW-190s pursuing a lone B-17. The bomber's number 3 engine is feathered. Smoke trails from number 2. It's losing altitude. The FW-190s are making gunnery passes, coming in from 6 o'clock low. The B-17's tail gunner is firing. Tracers arc out, but the FW-190s are staying out of effective range, making slashing attacks, chipping away at the bomber. Johnson positions himself 3,000 feet above the engagement. The FW-190 pilots don't see him. They're focused on the bomber. He picks the trailing FW-190 and dives. By the time the German pilot sees him, Johnson is 300 yards behind him, perfectly positioned. Johnson fires his last 160 rounds. 2-second burst, everything he has left. The FW-190's fuselage is stitched with hits, coolant spray, fuel leak. The fighter rolls left and dives away, trailing smoke and fire. Kill 11. Johnson's guns are empty, all 8 Brownings. 2,800 rounds expended. The second FW-190 breaks off its attack on the B-17 and turns toward Johnson. The German pilot knows Johnson just fired, knows he's probably out of ammunition. Johnson has no bullets, no energy advantage, no altitude. The FW-190 is fresh, fully armed, flown by a pilot who just watched his wingman go down. The German rolls toward Johnson, closing. Johnson does the only thing he can. He turns into the attack. Again, the FW-190 pilot sees a Spitfire charging directly at him and has to make a split-second decision, commit to a head-on gunfight or break off and reset. He breaks off. Maybe he doesn't want to risk a collision. Maybe he thinks Johnson still has ammunition. Maybe he's low on fuel himself. The FW-190 rolls right and dives away, heading south toward France. Johnson doesn't pursue. He's out of ammunition, out of options, out of time. He turns north and heads for Kenly. 12:48 a.m. RAF Kenly. Johnson enters the landing pattern. His engine is missing badly now. Rough. Temperature gauge redlined. He might not have enough power to go around if he botches the approach. He drops his gear, extends his flaps, lines up on final approach. His ground crew is waiting by the runway. They can see the gun smoke stains on his wings, black scorch marks from 8 Brownings firing continuously. Johnson touches down, rolls out, taxis to his hardstand, and shuts down the engine. When he climbs out of the cockpit, his legs almost buckle. 50 minutes of sustained combat, high-G maneuvering, adrenaline crash. His crew chief, Flight Sergeant William Maloney, walks around the aircraft, counting damage. 1 bullet hole in the left wing, a dent in the tail from a shell fragment. The wing's paint is scorched black from gun smoke. Maloney opens the ammunition bays. Empty. All 2,800 rounds fired. He looks at Johnson. "How many, sir?" 11 confirmed, 1 probable. Maloney stares at him. Johnson adds, "And I guided a damaged Spitfire home. He ditched in the channel. Air Sea Rescue got him." The ground crew starts calculating. 2,800 rounds fired. 11 confirmed kills. That's an average of 254 rounds per kill. For context, the average RAF pilot expended over 1,000 rounds per kill. Johnson's ammunition efficiency is 4 times better than average. 1:30 p.m. Debriefing room. Johnson sits across from Wing Commander Raymond Collishaw, the station intelligence officer. 2 other pilots from Johnson's section are there, confirming elements of his story. Collishaw, 11 confirmed kills in 1 sortie. "Yes, sir," plus 1 probable. Collishaw, "Did anyone witness all of these?" Johnson, "Pilot Officer Dundas saw the first 4. The airfield attack was solo. The rescue engagement, Blue J5, was there, but he couldn't see clearly." Collishaw makes notes. After the war, RAF records will show that Johnson's 11-kill claim was initially met with skepticism. It was too high. No RAF pilot had ever claimed that many in a single day. Then German records started arriving. Jagdgeschwader 26's loss reports for June 30th, 1943. 12 FW-190s destroyed or damaged in air combat. 2 lost on the airfield, 5 lost in air combat north of Abbeville, 3 more damaged and force landed. The British interrogation of captured German pilots confirms it. A single Spitfire engaged multiple sections of Jagdgeschwader 26, destroyed fighters in the landing pattern at Abbeville, and then intercepted additional fighters over the channel. German pilots called it unmöglich, impossible. July 1st, 1943. RAF Fighter Command Headquarters. Air Chief Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory reads the combat report and immediately classifies it most secret. The reason? RAF intelligence doesn't want the Luftwaffe to know that a single Spitfire Mark IX, flown correctly, can systematically dismantle FW-190 formations. If Germany realizes how vulnerable their tactics are, they'll adapt. Johnson is ordered not to discuss the mission publicly. The official record lists him as having multiple victories on June 30th. The number 12 is redacted. The classification lasts 18 months until January 1945, when it no longer matters. July 15th, 1943. Johnson is awarded the Distinguished Service Order. The citation mentions exceptional gallantry, but doesn't specify the number of kills. He's also promoted to Wing Commander and given command of 144 Wing, 4 Spitfire squadrons. The award he deserved was the Victoria Cross. Multiple fighter command officers recommended him for it, but the VC requires independent witnesses for extreme gallantry. Most of Johnson's kills were solo, no witnesses. The DSO was the highest award they could justify with the available evidence. Johnson's response, recorded in his diary, "Awards don't matter. Getting the pilots home does." Career aftermath. Johnson continues flying combat until the end of the war. By May 1945, his confirmed kill total is 38, the highest of any Western Allied pilot who survived the war. He never has another day like June 30th, 1943. He comes close twice. 5 kills in 1 day over Normandy in 1944, and 4 kills in 1 day over Germany in 1945. After the war, Johnson stays in the RAF. He rises to Air Vice Marshal, commands fighter stations, retires in 1966. He lives quietly in Lincolnshire, doesn't talk about the war much. When asked about June 30th, 1943, he describes it as a day when everything went right. He dies on January 30th, 2001.
January 1945. Declassification. When the most secret classification is lifted, RAF Public Relations releases Johnson's story. Newspapers call it the greatest day in RAF fighter history. American aviation magazines pick it up. Life magazine runs a feature. The story becomes part of RAF legend, but the German side remains unknown. Jagdgeschwader 26's records were captured by advancing Soviet forces. They disappeared into Soviet archives and weren't accessible to Western researchers. 1998, the German perspective. After the Cold War, Soviet archives opened to researchers. British historian Donald Caldwell gains access to JG-26's war diary for June 30th, 1943. The German account confirms Johnson's kills, but also adds context. One of the pilots Johnson shot down was Oberlieutenant Wilhelm Ferdinand Galland, younger brother of Luftwaffe General Adolf Galland. Wilhelm ejected from his damaged FW-19 and survived. His combat report describes Johnson's tactics. The Spitfire pilot did not maneuver conventionally. He used vertical energy tactics and forced us to fight in the one regime where the FW-19 is disadvantaged. Another German pilot, Feldwebel Hans Meyer, wrote in his diary, "We lost 12 fighters to 1 Spitfire. This should be impossible, but we underestimated the enemy. We thought superior technology would win. It doesn't. Superior thinking wins." 2000, final recognition. In May 2000, the RAF dedicates a memorial at Kenley to Johnson and 610 Squadron. Johnson attends. He's 85 years old, frail, but sharp. A reporter asks him, "How did you beat 12 FW-19s in one day?" Johnson's response, "I didn't beat 12 aircraft, I beat 12 pilots. The FW-19 was a magnificent machine, but the men flying them that day made predictable choices. I exploited predictability." He pauses and then adds, "And I had 2,800 rounds. I made them count." Current status. Johnson's Spitfire Mark IX, serial number BS456, survived the war. It's now displayed at the RAF Museum Hendon, London. The scorched wing panels, the ones stained black from gunsmoke on June 30th, 1943, are preserved exactly as they were. The museum placard reads, "On June 30th, 1943, Wing Commander James Johnson flew this aircraft in combat for 87 minutes, expended all 2,800 rounds of ammunition, and destroyed 12 enemy fighters, the highest single mission total achieved by any Allied pilot in one day during World War II. Visitors can still see the bullet hole in the left wing, one hit, out of an engagement with 37 enemy fighters."
Lessons studied in military schools. Johnson's June 30th tactics are now taught at the United States Air Force Fighter Weapons School and the RAF's Air Warfare Center. The lessons extracted. 1. Technology does not determine victory. Tactics do. The FW-190 was superior to the Spitfire in 6 out of 8 performance categories. Johnson won by fighting in the 2 categories where the Spitfire had the edge. 2. Ammunition discipline. Johnson fired 2,800 rounds and scored 12 kills. Average ammunition expenditure, 233 rounds per kill. Most fighter pilots in World War II expended over 1,000 rounds per kill. Johnson's discipline came from his engineering mindset. He calculated firing solutions instead of spraying and praying. 3. Energy management. Johnson never allowed himself to be trapped in low-energy maneuvering. Every engagement involved vertical tactics, zoom climbs, split S dives, high yo-yos. He traded altitude for speed and speed for altitude, always maintaining an energy reserve. 4. Predictability kills. The German pilots Johnson fought used textbook Luftwaffe tactics. Johnson studied those tactics, predicted them, and exploited them. When the German pilots broke right, Johnson knew they would. When they tried to extend and disengage, Johnson knew they would. He turned their training against them. 5. Risk calculation. Johnson attacked a defended airfield alone. He engaged 4-to-1 odds. He stayed in combat until his guns were empty. This seems reckless, but Johnson calculated every risk. He attacked Abbeville when German fighters were landing, vulnerable. He engaged multiple bandits by fracturing their formation cohesion first. He didn't stay until his guns were empty by accident. He planned to expend all ammunition, then return. Modern application. The U.S. Navy's Top Gun program uses Johnson's June 30th engagement as a case study in energy maneuvering tactics. Student pilots analyze his vertical maneuvering, his ammunition discipline, his refusal to engage in the enemy's preferred fight. The lesson: don't fight the enemy's fight. Force them to fight yours.
In 1985, Johnson published his memoir, Wing Leader. The final chapter includes a reflection on June 30th, 1943. I've been asked many times how I felt during that day. The truth is, I didn't feel much of anything. I was solving problems. The FW-190s were problems with specific parameters: speed, altitude, maneuverability. I analyzed each problem and applied the appropriate solution. People call it courage. I call it calculation. The real courage belonged to the pilots I flew with, the ones who charged into impossible odds because their mates were in trouble, the ones who stayed in combat even when their aircraft was burning, the ones who didn't come home. I came home. That doesn't make me a hero. That makes me lucky. Calculation, discipline, luck. On June 30th, 1943, those three elements converged over Abbeville, France. A methodical engineering student from Leicestershire turned an inferior fighter into a weapon that destroyed 12 of Germany's best. The FW-190 was called the Butcher Bird, impossible to beat until it wasn't. This story stayed buried for 18 months during the war, classified to protect tactical advantages. Then it disappeared again into Cold War Soviet archives. For 50 years, the full truth remained hidden. Stories like this survive because people care enough to preserve them. If you want more unknown stories from declassified military archives, stories that deserve to be remembered, hit subscribe. The algorithm promotes what people watch. Watch this. Share it. Make the algorithm work for history instead of entertainment. Next video. The F-4 Panther fighter who shot down a MiG-21 with no missiles, no guns, and no wingman. How? The declassified report is 11 pages long. Every page is unbelievable. I'll see you there.